Intro.
Today we're gonna talk about temperature. So what is temperature? Temperature is a unit of measurement for hotness or coldness that can be represented in Fahrenheit or Celsius. Temperature controls the rate at which chemical reaction and biological process takes place, and one of the most essential physical qualities of water is its temperature. The maritime environment has an impact on variety of physical, chemical, and biological process. So water temperature is measured in Fahrenheit or Celsius, and it's a measure of kinetic energy of water. The temperature of the water influences the outcome in parts which dissolved gas concentration in seawater. There are dissolved gas concentration in seawater that includes oxygen and nitrogen. Carbon dioxide is one of the strong connection to the biological processes of the ocean. The ocean current is responsible for the transportation of warm water. Warm Caribbean waters are carried to the northern Atlantic Ocean by surface current, where heat is released into the atmosphere, resulting in warmer conditions in the region. The cold water lowers the ocean's depth, to the low ocean depth, where it continues to travel southward, connecting to the ocean currents. Okay. Current is responsible for the transportation of cold water because it is due to the uneven heating of the sun. Water in the equatorial regions is warm, while in the polar regions it is much colder, and warm water or cold water is needed to balance the temperature of it. The water's form is determined by the temperature of the ocean. The ocean is mostly liquid water, but it can solidify into ice, and it gets cold enough or it can evaporate into the sky if it gets hot enough. So the ocean's water is changing it, and it depends to its temperature. Sometimes it's cold, and sometimes it evaporates, and sometimes it solidifies into ice because of the temperature. Okay, next. So the ocean has 3 temperature layers. That is mixed layers. Next is thermocline. Next is deep water. The temperature is constant across the upper warm, which is the mixed layer, and deep cold. So the deep cold is this part right there. And then the thermocline, which is warmer at the top than the bottom, lies between, because it is warmer at the top because the first layer is warmer and the bottom layer is colder. So the thermocline, the coldness and the warm part is constantly changing, and it's not balanced. So what is a thermocline? Is the transition layer between the warmer mixed water, the surface, and the cooler deep water below. So andito pala siya. The temperature changes because certain properties. So in extreme water surfaces, the temperature can go as low as negative 1.9 degrees Celsius, which is the freezing point of seawater. The surface seawater temperature is different to air temperature, and it can affect different ecosystems, which can range from as high as 58 degrees Celsius to negative 89 degrees Celsius during winter and in the Antarctic. Next, so there are possible outcomes because of temperature changes. It can be that cold water, it is because cold water is denser than warm water, and when heat is not abundant in the water might sink. So the water will be decreased. The water decreases. Next is that cold water stores more gases that are easily dissolved, such as carbon dioxide and carcinogens. Reproductive toxins and neurotoxins are all possible side effects of organic solvents that has been melted. Next is the productivity of the organisms living is also influenced by the temperature. So sometimes in cold waters, in a cold temperature in the water, there is not a lot of active organisms because of the cold. They might freeze. Next is into the warm waters, the coral bleaching and the loss of reproductive habitats for marine fishing and mammals are both caused by the rising temperature. Next topic is a part of the temperature, which is sea surface temperature, known as sea surface temperature, SST, or ocean surface temperature, OST. The surface varies depending on the measurement method, but is between 1 millimeter or 0.04 inches and 20 meters or 70 feet below the sea surface. What happens in sea surface temperature? The sea surface temperature is temperature at depth, just like salinity, is determined by conditions under which the water was last at the surface, and the top temperature difference between the top and bottom of the ocean at low latitude is significant. As you can see there in this figure, the screen, warmer surface water near the equator and the cooler surface water is near the poles are readily seen in this photograph. Okay, this image is created by a satellite in May 2001. So as you can see here, the temperature ranges from 30 degrees Celsius to 1 degree Celsius. Yeah, as you can see there. At the bottom, where Atlantic, South, North and South Pole is seen. So as you know, the temperature does not become super warm even it's 30 degrees, because the temperature is changing because of certain properties that buffers it, which means it can absorb or lose large quantities of heat. Earth is also cooled by evaporation. Large quantities of heat is transferred and it becomes water vapor. That is why sometimes it's ocean at latitudes of 30 and 40 degrees. The annual variation in sea surface temperature is about 6 to 7 degrees Celsius. In the Western Pacific and North Atlantic, that have annual variations of 18 degrees Celsius, because westerly winds that brings very cold air masses over the regions in winter and warm continental air summer. So the daily variation in the surface temperature is in the open ocean is less than 0.3 degrees Celsius, and it's impossible to perceive at a depth of 10 meters. Next is the vertical temperature distribution. The vertical temperature distribution refers to the temperature distribution in different layers of the atmosphere at various latitudes from the Earth's surface because of the elevation from the surface. Because of the elevation from the surface, temperature normally drops. Okay, the temperature difference between the surface and the bottom of the ocean can be as large as 20 degrees Celsius, large or as warm as 20 degrees Celsius. The region of rapid density changes is known as the picnic line, and it acts as a vertical water circulation. It also affects the distribution of certain chemicals which play a role in the biology of the seas. As you can see there, that is the picnic line. And here is the permanent thermocline. Thermocline is defined as a shift in water density between 2 points of the underlying cold dense bottom and warmer low density surface of the water. So as I explained at the first part, thermocline is the part where warm water is above it, and the bottom of the thermocline is the cold part of the ocean. So there is a shift between the two of them. So there is also seasonal thermocline, which the thermocline that is not impacted by diurnal fluctuations in surface surface forcing is known as the seasonal thermocline. So the layer of the water in which the permanent thermocline is the point where the temperature gradient is steepest. The temperature difference across this layer could be as much as 20 degrees Celsius, and the thermocline is defined as the shift in the water density because the 2 points underlying. The thermocline is an oceanic water layer in which the temperature of the water drops rapidly as depth increases, from depths of about 200 meters or 660 feet to about 1,000 meters, which is 3,000 feet. A vast permanent thermocline exists under the relatively warm, well-mixed surface layer. Explain picnocline. It is function as a barrier to vertical water circulation, affecting the environment's particular substance that play a role to the biology of certain animals that have a vertical distribution. Because the ocean has sharp temperature and density gradients, it may also operate as a barrier for animals' vertical motion that is restricted. Temperature at 2,000 to 3,000 meters in most marine locations. It never rises over, because regardless of latitude, the temperature is 4 degrees Celsius. The temperature drops to minimum at higher depths. It drops because of the between 0 and 3 degrees Celsius at the equator. So the deep water temperature is in Arctic regions. It's only a few degrees warmer than deep water. The one and only in certain remote places of the world. There are exceptions, to the cold deep conditions, which is deep seas where geothermal activity may arise. A temperature at the bottom water activity. More will be said about thermal stratification in later sections. The psychological ability to cope with environmental temperatures play a large role in determining the distributional limits of marine organisms.